Welcome, Natalie, another Natalie. I'm joyed to have you on. I know you were on a podcast probably a few years ago, actually. So this is going to be a different focus anyway, because we're talking about success on your terms. But it's a privilege to know you. I love you in my world. So let's get straight into it. How tell me about yourself and what you do.
What do I do? Oh my gosh, join the dots. First of all, hello again. And honestly, I was just telling you before on this, like I absolutely love your podcast. And I'm really just so privileged to have you in my world. So thank you. And what do I do? I'm a bit of at a crossroads at the moment. So I think the overarching theme is I'm a coach, confidence coach for children and a coach for parents, and the founder of Power Thoughts. And Power Thoughts is a company I set up about 6, 7 years ago because initially I wanted to help children tap into the power of their own thoughts to give them really the tools that I wish I had learned when I was a child when it comes to emotional well-being, looking after my emotions, my negative thoughts, my worries, my anxieties. But over the last 7 years, the work has definitely shifted from it's not just about kids, it's actually now so much more about parents and about helping parents. I keep saying raising emotionally resilient parents so we can raise emotionally resilient children. But it really is about helping parents, yes, have the strategies to know how to support their child, but it's also how do I support myself?
Mm.
How do I deal with my own emotions? How do I deal with my own self-doubt and my own frustration tolerance and deal with all of those difficult things that we expect kids, we expect our kids to do, but we struggle to do that for ourselves. And so my work is definitely taking me more along that route. So whilst I am obviously still coaching kids and I absolutely love it, it's just as much about supporting parents and really also exploring how I can support working parents and really working with organizations supporting the well-being of their parent staff members. Because parenting doesn't just stop when you come through the door at work and you've had a massive meltdown with your child, but now you've got to jump onto this presentation, or you're worried about your child being bullied at school. All of those things continue to come with you into the office. And so that's the other angle that I'm looking at.
It's so profound what you do. And I know you sent a book to my beautiful niece, Summer, who's 7 now, Know Your Feelings. And then we've looked at that book, and then we also did some work with the one with like the silent, well, there's a silent guides, which is one book as well, but you know that one where there's an actual kids one as well that you do with them. And
Yeah.
again, I said to her, like, we know that it is a chimp as such in paradox,
Mm.
but when it's a kids one, they're like, name your chimp. And I was like, what's your chimp's name then? She was like, Autumn. I was like, right, okay, cool. But everything you're talking about there
Mm.
is the stuff that we don't learn and we should learn. And that's the same for us when it comes to everything. It's business as well. But very much that's where your work's so profound, is because, like you just said, it doesn't stop the minute they leave school or the minute you walk in and those types of things. And we're like, Summer's a very lucky child in it as well. We all collaboratively have our own relationship with her, but also help her in different ways in life skills and also school skills as well, which is so important. Like you say, we always say it's not just school that's going to educate them. There's a role and responsibility that we all have. And it's helping people and educating people in seeing that as well. With
Mm.
what that's what I see what you do all the time. It's like you need, I look at you and what you do, and I'm like, you need that. Like this is so incredible. It's so important, but it comes across sometimes to people, and like the aspects where we've spoken about the work I do as well. It's a want to have, and I'm like, no, this is a need to have right now. It's so important.
Mm. Absolutely. And the more I look at it, the more it's not a luxury, it's a necessity
Yeah.
because we are in yes, I mean, I don't want to say, mental health has always been there, mental fitness, emotional well-being, but our world is very fast paced, and the world today is very, very different to what it was when we were growing up.
Sure.
Emotional well-being, mental health, all of that was there when we were growing up. We just didn't have the language for it, and it was shamed or perhaps suppressed. We just didn't talk about it, but it's always been there. We now talk about it. We know the importance of looking after it, but the world and society that we're in doesn't necessarily help us in the best way to look after our emotional well-being. If you think about everything is fast-paced, quick gratification. I
Yeah.
mean, I actually put a post up today on my Instagram about an article that was published just a couple of days ago on the amount of children now receiving antidepressants is more than 500,000 a year. Now, I have no problem with medication, and I've shared my own journey with that. And for me, it's been really, really powerful, but
Mm.
it's not the answer.
Yeah.
And we really need to be looking at how are we supporting our children? But then the blame is also on schools, right? Well, the schools should do more. And yeah, I absolutely agree. The school system needs to be overhauled because it's not working. It's not. And why are we forcing our kids to fit into a hole or a box that they're not going to fit into? The school needs to fit with our children.
Sure.
But it's not the school's only responsibility. Like, you are the responsibility of your child. And it might not be your fault because, you know, our parents did the best that they could do when it came to raising us and when it comes to looking after our needs. And many of the families that I support realize as well, you know, maybe that emotional understanding my emotions, how to regulate emotions, how to deal with anger in the best way wasn't modeled or taught to me. It's not your fault. It's okay, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And that sometimes I find, you know, and also knowing you're not going to get it right all the time. So, you know, parents sometimes look at me when I say, I'm not expecting you to never get angry or expect you to always stay calm or always regulate your emotions, because that's just not humanly possible. But we can all start somewhere and choose and begin to do a little bit better.
Mm.
And it's, you know, it does. And I think that's why I feel like it's not just a luxury, this is a necessity, because you put the news on today and it shows you clearly that there are a bunch of people running countries that don't know how to deal with difficult emotions,
Yeah.
that don't
Yeah.
know how, you know, and so this is fundamental. And it's actually really funny, Nat, because today I was on a branding call with my friend Artie Palmer. I don't know, I'm giving her a shout out. Yeah. And she just got us to think about our mission. And for the first time ever, I was thinking, but this is about looking after resilient parents, raising resilient kids so that we have emotionally resilient communities and societies. So we have to, because, you know, I'm not saying the world is a scary place. The world is an amazing, beautiful place, but we can do so much better.
Yeah, yeah, and it puts me into the mindset and perspective of thinking around the fact that it's like leadership, isn't it? When you get into, like, when I started business and you're good at it, and then they take you to the next level, and then suddenly you're leading people and responsible. And it's the same for like parenting, is that people just have kids and they're like, oh, I'm a parent, but no one teaches them those things or those skills that are needed. And it's like, well, why would you see it as any different? But we've
Mm,
not had the education for us to again see things in that way. It's
mm,
just been almost a given right. And you're right, there is so much more that is like, it is your responsibility, of course it is. And I think it's so important that we share that. And I think I have to always center myself in knowing that, and like yourself, that our knowledge isn't common knowledge, and what we see is the the best way to be and move forward and how we can help people is actually often far beyond where most people are at in life. And that's why, again, this is so important, because of the impact, that ripple effect, that
mm,
starfish analogy of how many people it can really help in generations coming through. And again, like, that level of responsibility you have beyond that, even if you don't have kids, like, what's, like I say, my level of responsibility is to my niece. Like, I have a certain role to play when I teach about money mindset, and I'm going, here, take my card and pay the bill like a good girl. Like, all those jokey things are having an impact in her future, how she builds everything around herself, her relationships, her skills, all of that is having an impact.
No, 100% it does. And it is generations, you know, it is parents that come to me want to break the generational cycle, so to say, want to shift away from old patterns, but find it really hard to do because it wasn't taught or modeled to them. But
Yeah.
it's also the ripple effect that it has when you can look after your own emotional well-being and learn how to, big part of this is about how to navigate difficult emotions, how to be vulnerable, how to not be able to fix everything, how to sit with that uncertainty, how to sit with your child's uncomfortable emotions, because as the parent, I want to fix, I want to problem solve, but I want to see my child in pain, or this emotion that they're having just feels so uncomfortable, so we want to shut it down, all coming from a loving place. But actually, how do I increase my capacity to actually hold space for these emotions? And, you know, some of that might need therapeutic support, some of it is obviously coaching, but it's the ripple effect that that will have on your child when they are seeing you model how to respond versus react, how to have difficult conversations instead of shut down, how to advocate for yourself instead of people pleasing. all of those things will have a ripple effect on how your child then operates. And, another thing that we don't speak enough about in terms of when I speak about parenting is I often talk about modeling emotional regulation, but modeling self-compassion. And
Right.
often self-compassion is, oh, yeah, but it's just being kind to myself. And it's actually a really key skill in helping us develop resiliency.
Sure.
And Dr. Kirsten Neff, has some great research on this, that actually soldiers that implemented self-compassion were that much better at, recovery and, recovering from PTSD and dealing with difficult situations. So it's not just, but how do we model self-compassion? It's more, and I grew up more, I suppose, in the generation from a household of toughen up and come on, pick yourself back up and, put those big girl pants on. And yes, there's a fine line with that. I agree. There's a dance between grit and self-compassion. And sometimes I think as a society, we can go the opposite way again of like, oh, well, everything's going to be easy. It's like, no, it's not. It can be hard, but I don't have to, be a horrible bully to myself. And but I see this a lot with kids as well who don't know how, they beat themselves up when they get wrong grades or they make mistakes or they think they're not good enough. And it's this whole cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so generations to come.
Let's take it back to our journey and where we first met, because I think one, it's
Mm.
to show about the building relationships part and obviously bringing it into success on your own terms. But I suddenly thought of this when I saw your beautiful award behind yourself there.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got yours behind you. I look at mine. That's really how we met, wasn't it? Through the coaching academy when
Yeah.
it was this. So I won CPD Coach of the Year. Yours was the education one.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that was that amazing, beautiful night in London around the Coaching Academy, International Coaching Awards. What, I mean, your story would have probably come before that a lot more, wasn't it? I was just finishing my qualifications. Where did you, and you speak about the mission there, where did you come about in wanting to build a business doing this?
So I initially trained to be a coach because I wanted to leave teaching. I was a teacher for, I think, probably about 14 years or so, I forget now. But I desperately wanted to leave teaching, and I was dabbling a bit in the fitness industry. So I qualified as a fitness instructor, but still teaching full time. And I remember still thinking, okay, I've got my exercise to music, I'm teaching classes, but I can't just be doing this. Like, what's the bigger plan?
Mm.
And so I was at a crossroads of becoming a personal trainer. I was actually looking at that. And then the school I was with sent me on a coaching course, which was, first of all, a taster to life coaching. But I absolutely loved it because I also have a keen interest in psychology and I've got a psychology degree as well. And that then led me on the path of looking at coaching schools. And I found the Coaching Academy to get a proper qualification. And initially, my idea was I want to leave teaching and set up a business helping women make career changes. And confidence coaching is the thing that kind of came to mind. But
Yeah.
you know what is really interesting? I probably did that on the side for about 2 years, and it never gelled. Um, and I remember still thinking, I've been doing this thing for 2 years and it's just not taking off. Like, it just feels like something's not right. And people at school used to say to me, you should bring coaching into schools. And I was like, no, I want to leave the system. I'm fed up with kids. I don't want to have anything to do with them. And it literally was a fluke because I had done the stress coaching CPD day one Sunday. And that Monday, I'd come to school and I think I was working with year sixes who were quite stressed about their SATs exams. And I thought, why are we not teaching kids about stress and how stress is impacting their brain? Because they literally can't learn because of all the
Yeah.
chemicals flooding about in their system right now. And so I remember stopping whatever I was meant to be doing. And I literally did like a dumbed down version of what's happening for them. And I have never seen these kids so engaged before in understanding what was going on. And so that really planted the seed. And I then started to like put other ideas together during my after school clubs. And that got the idea of power thoughts to mind. And I thought, well, instead of just focusing on mindfulness, because mindfulness was like the big buzzword at that stage,
Mm.
this is going deeper than that. And I can do this. So let me create a curriculum. And then that's sort of how it was born. And from there, I was lucky because the head teacher knew that I absolutely just hated teaching and I just wanted to leave the system. So she'd given me a year contract where I was like the in-house supply teacher, which was really lovely because all the kids knew me, but I didn't have all of that extra admin. And that allowed me to put this program together. And then that next year I started to go part-time, and some of my, teaching friends had moved on. And so it kind of got me into some schools. But it really was I remember fighting against this idea because I was like, this is not what my plan was. But I was also really excited because I'm like, I'm really good at this and I think there's something here. But it was scary because at that point, there wasn't really anyone else doing what I was doing. I mean, now there's loads of people and I kind of feel like the market's quite saturated. But back then, it was quite a new thing. And it proved, from there, it kind of snowballed, and it then led to one-to-one sessions. And I'll probably say I've only really started working with parents about, say, 2 years ago. Up
Wow.
until then, it was always focused on the kids.
Yeah, and that's where, like, again, your story, your journey, and that exact example there, that seed is so important for people to go on. But also
Mm.
that part in just like business, like we all know that not gelling piece is okay. It's not gonna, lots of people I work with right now just want lots of certainties. It's gonna work and I need to believe it's gonna happen. I'm like, 99% of it won't. This might not. And like, how do we work with you on the feelings again around that, and not compounding emotions, and actually leaning into the fact that it's uncomfortable, it's challenging, it's hard. I believe business is simple, not complicated, but I don't believe it's easy. I believe it is hard. And I think that's the difference of people is lots of people want it easy and simple. And we see that in marketing all the time. And we know that. But that's not what's going to grow an incredible business and create the success what we want and help us differentiate.
Mm.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge for you the last 2 years in growing a business, I guess, in the last, and even like up to the last 12 months? Because we always talk off of here about how challenging it is, and we're very open with one another. We have a great relationship, but like often it's oh my God, why am I doing this? What's going on? And we need that. Like I've got that with yourself and with certain core people that I know I can just have no judgment, say how I feel, and it's like, I get it. Speak to me.
Yeah.
It's so important to have those relationships. What have you seen are the biggest shifts the last?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the last year has definitely been more challenging in terms of the landscape. I feel
Yeah,
things have definitely changed.
yeah,
I would naturally get inquiries organically, word of mouth referral, that I never really had to go out and get business. It was always coming. And I mean, talking of the last 6, 7 years, whereas probably like the last, say, 12 months, there's definitely been, it's trickled down a lot. And I think at a stage I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? And I'm doing the same thing and it doesn't really make sense. And my challenge, I guess, and there's two bits to it because I'm also pivoting a bit in terms that funny enough, for the last year, I've been saying I don't want to do as many one-to-ones. So clearly the big man upstairs has heard me and it's turned out like, oh, well, be careful what we wish for. But anyway, because what does light me up is corporate stuff, speaking,
right.
group work. That's where I get a lot of my energy from. But there is obviously maybe there's a pivot in my messaging then, and there's a pivot on where my focus is going and who I'm speaking to and just what I'm paying attention to. And in that pivoting time, it's tumbleweeds, it's
Yeah,
quiet because it feels like you're kind of constructing yourself in a different way. But I think definitely, it's interesting because whilst I'm mindful, I don't want to get caught up in the whole, we're in a recession, cost of living, da, da, da. I'm very mindful of that because people are still spending, but
right.
I do find people are taking longer to part with their
Yeah,
cash and they
yeah,
need more time to make decisions.
yeah,
And my work, as much as it is a necessity, many people still see it as a luxury.
mm,
And sometimes, yes, I am competing against an increase in mortgages and, a surplus of, speaking to a mum the other day, and she's like, I really want to work with you, but our mortgage has gone up by £900. And I get, for a family of four, I get that. So for me, I've definitely seen a change in buyers' behavior pattern
yeah,
and how they buy things. Um, and I just think, okay, this is just a rite of passage as a business entrepreneur. You've got to ride through those seasons. And I've been here for 7 years, so clearly something is working. It's not that it's not working, it's just slower and not as quick as what I wanted to. And I think as well, just as I'm pivoting and wanting to reach more corporates, but also set up more group programs that can sustain me, that all just takes time. It takes time. And one of the things I get increasingly frustrated with myself is that I have this list of things I know I'm going to do, and it takes me like triple the amount of time to get it done. It's just, oh, so that's probably a big thing. And dealing just with the uncertainty, I'm not going to lie, it was nerve-wracking because I was like, well, what am I, you initially just think, well, what am I doing wrong? And, what's going on here? And it's the algorithm and it's this and it's that. But it's also just things change and you've then got to move with the changes.
Yeah, and look, I would all of that. Absolutely back up. I'd only say the same things. I think, and that's where we said at the start, it's so important to have these relationships and get out of your head. And the irony is,
Oh,
what you do with the kids is probably stuff where you're sitting there going, "I need this. I need to
yeah,
do this. Remind
yeah.
yourself to do this and that." It's so important because, like
Oh.
like as adults, and like, I remember doing grief recovery program a few years ago when I transitioned from the corporate world into running my own business because I was like, well, who is Nat? Like my identity's completely gone. I was just chucking it all in that backpack and zipping it up. So I'm very aware of that. What I guess we're similar in certain mindset things and um how we lean into like you said, giving ourselves compassion. And one of our strongest things as a strategy is our fitness.
Mm.
Fitness being one of them, what other strategies have you worked on or that help you to kind of ground yourself in? Like you just said, it's that rite of passage. It's that's takes time. It's okay. What have you used that's really helped you in that pivot and the changing buyers' behaviors, which you're absolutely spot on about, and business? What have you seen to work?
Yeah, I think definitely, definitely fitness, 100% exercise and making sure that I have I have a bit of a cringe with morning routine because I appreciate everybody has a different, thing. And mine is the annoying one where I get up quite early. So I am that annoying person, but that works for me.
Tell me more
Um,
about that. What was your morning routine then?
so I mean, it's waking up roughly about 5:20 and I'm in the gym for 6 to 7, and then I'll come home and I'll look at my phone in terms of the workout that's on my app. And I'm really good at not going on socials, emails, don't do any of that. Um, and I'm really good at that because I kind of feel a bit like I haven't brushed my teeth if I do that first, that kind of feeling. That's kind of like what I've programmed my mind to be. I'm like, oh no, we can't look at this. We can't look at this until I'm like cleared my mind. And then I'll come home. And then for the last, was it when did we start? November. So since November, I've moved from meditations just to do like a 7-minute visualization exercise
Okay.
with a lady that you definitely should get on, Maya Rakosha.
Okay.
So she's got these visualization exercises, um, and just been using that
Yeah.
and just to kind of clear my mind. And then if there's time for journaling, I'll do that. But normally, it's then jump in the shower and then I'm posting on LinkedIn or putting something on Instagram, which I do want to change because I don't think it's the best use of my energy,
Yeah.
since I'm more of a morning person and I get a lot done. But for me, having like a solid routine, and when I don't stick to it, it can have such a ripple effect on the rest of the day. Like everything goes out the window and I just don't feel good. And so that is a big, big part. The other thing as well is I think definitely, voice notes. I have had to learn to reach out and ask my friends because my husband's amazing. He's incredibly caring and he knows when something's up, but he's also not my business partner. And I'm
Yeah.
also very mindful. I can't put everything on him when I'm having those wobbles because it's not fair. And it's just also just different, it's a different mindset. Um,
I miss that actually. I miss that a lot running my own business on my own compared to like VA, but like comparison to having that space around people who we're working with or just I remember going to the office with the senior
yeah.
managers and being like, oh my God. And they'd just be like, have you finished? I'm like, yeah. And even I have a friend, Victoria Dio, who and sometimes I voice note her or ring her and I just ran it and she's like, you done? And I'm like, yeah. And the other day she said, you need to stop watching Ricky Gervais. And I was like, why? She goes, because there's a certain word that keeps coming out of your mouth. I was like, Okay then. And that just keeps coming up for me this week about stop watching Ricky Gervais. But you need that output because, like I said, all you're doing is throw it in the backpack or you just like this. And that's why it's interesting to hear we'll come back to what you were saying there before I interjected. But I used to be the person like having the morning routine, and I used to be up with corporate like 5, 6 as well, and in the gym at 6, all that jazz. I less have changed it recently a lot because one, like I feel at this age, like I'm 36 now compared to I'm comparing myself to 26 of bouncing up and I can't do it the same way and I don't have the same energy. I'm not out as much or physically like I have to go to the gym deliberately to get my physical exercise in, whereas work was always like I'm on my feet the whole time. So I very much know I have to do different things in terms of environment, and that's key for how I work to change things up. But I also, as much as I like structure and routine, I was finding this whole of you've got to do this, and this, and the perfect stuff. I was like, this doesn't work for me. I was like, what I like is the idea to know what does work for me really well. And I tap into it based on how I feel when I need it. So sometimes I'll have a cold shower. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll use my nice little pin pad Shakti mat or whatever. And sometimes I won't. But and again, like you, sometimes I'll notice stuff like visualizations or a mindset thing, like on my car mat. I think the ability to know as well, trust yourself with what you need is really core, opposed to, like you said, the people that are throwing out 5M Club. I don't care if you're in it or not. I care that you have something that works for you.
Yeah.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. And you know, it's really interesting because even today I did wake up at 5:20 and I suppose it's easy because my husband is like, he's on it. He's like, I'm there every day. That's what
Does
I do.
help.
If I do a lot, if I do a little. So that definitely does help. But I was up at, 5:20 is normal today, but I was just like, do you know what? I'm not going to go in today. I'm going to read like a book and journal and then I'll go for a walk because I've done, 6 days and I'm like, I know I'm back again tomorrow. My body needs a break. And actually, as long as but for me, I was like, I have to get out of the house then. If I'm not
Yeah.
going, I have to get out of the house, put a podcast on. So that's another thing I do, especially when I'm in like those spirals and my brain's very good at a spiral. It's like the worst case scenario and all kids are going to drop off the face of this earth and there's not going to be any work ever again. Like, it's a really good job of giving me that story. Really good job. But is actually, for me, podcast is a big thing. And so tapping into a podcast that I know will uplift me and motivate me and shift my mindset. Music as well is another one I
Yeah.
do,
100%.
especially when I used to teach fitness classes. And sometimes I found my old playlist and I was just like, I need to listen to this more because it just, it gave me all of
Yeah.
those like chemical rushes, like when I used to teach. And I was like, actually, I remember feeling so confident when I did this. So I need to tap back into it. And just touching on environment, I think for me what's really important is making sure I'm also working not always from the house, that I'm in environments that I feel a bit more inspired, hence I'm
Yeah.
not going to London quite often,
Yeah.
just to be, and I do find that that's hugely helpful. So if I am going through like a wobble, the best thing I should do is actually get out of the house because it's work amongst other people who are
Yeah.
working. The noise just tends to silence a bit. And it's like, oh, well, this is real life. What's that story you're concocting? Your brain is not true.
Yeah, look, we're so conformed, aren't we, to society, even like we just said, the education system, it's conformed to make you
Yeah.
feel one way or another. And it's who allows you to challenge if it's right or wrong on certain things. I've known some friends that I've met through masterminds and things, and this year they're taking their kids out of education. And I'm like, oh my God. But they are doing those big, bold moves and they're challenging the status quo on things. And it's like, but if no one ever does that, what's ever going to change in the things that we know that we really need to and we have to lean into, but they're so uncomfortable, or we don't know what that will look like. We don't, or we fear it. And it's so important that you take the lead on those. But also what I love about the relationship with you is that we're honest about this, that yes, we love what we do, but it doesn't, like I said, make it easy, or that it's, you don't have those days or weeks of self-doubt of like, what am I
Oh
doing
yeah, I've
all
even
the
Googled
time?
jobs. I was like, what can I do? I literally have during a dark moment. I was like, because I would not go back into teaching, and I've had this
Yeah.
chat. Like, there's no way I could go back. It's just, it's
Like,
not.
I'm absolutely same with retail. Like I can't even go into big shops anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's like that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. And then I was like, but what do I do then? Because then I was like, somebody said, oh, but you could tutor, to know who this was, tutor. And I was like, no, but that's like a new business because I'm so out of the game that I
Yeah.
wouldn't even know what to tutor. Like they were going to be tutoring me. That's not even going to work. And so I was like that. I remember once, this was last year, just, and business was fine, but it's just this mind story that I got myself caught up in about just being really anxious about dealing, things had changed a bit. And I was like, what's going on? And I just remember on LinkedIn jobs I could do. And I was like, what are you doing, Natalie? Get away. You're wasting energy on this. Like, focus on what you can do. Like, business is boring, business is hard, and it's not always sexy. It's not. And you have to push through these moments because you've come too far to give up.
Mm.
And I definitely am not one of those people that are like keep pushing. I do agree. Like sometimes the brave thing is to stop and to give up because it's
Yeah.
just, but I know that that's not where I'm
Yeah.
at. It really is managing. I think a big thing is you underestimate the amount of mindset work or just the inner work you need to do in running a business because it brings
Yeah.
up all of your flaws and your insecurities.
Mm.
The same as I think, having a child, it
Mm.
activates you in many different ways that you can't ever really prepare for until you've got it.
Mm. What does success mean to you?
Oh, for me, it is, do you know what? It's having the financial freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it. But it's not necessary that it has to be a million either. It's none of those sort of things. It's just having the peace of mind, I think, because it's doing what I making an impact. Like,
Mm.
it's funny, I was talking to my husband the other day when I was frustrated. I'm like, I really love what I do. I love my session with parents. I love my session with kids. I love the corporate stuff, and I'm really good at it. And I have to remember that when things feel slow and, when it's like the marketing bit and the selling and the copy, those kind of things I don't like. But for me, success is knowing that I can do what I'm doing and it's giving me the freedom to enjoy my life experiences and travel, but I'm making a really positive impact in the world. But what that financial freedom is, again, it doesn't even have, it's not even into like the millions because I was like, I could live a really nice life,
Yeah.
just the two of us. And as long as I've got freedom to travel, and for me, that's a big thing. It's having the freedom to travel and not having to worry about, financial constraints and so forth. But it's got to be doing something that I know is making a big impact
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah, purpose is huge, and that meaning for life, I think. And lots of people I find, especially for us to tap into, I don't really do any coaching now, it's all strategy. But when it has been the coaching, and obviously I default to that. Like I'm quite conformed in that side of things in knowing the coaching, but it has to have real meaning for me of what I do in terms of like filling, like we talk a lot like filling your cup and like enjoying your life and your days. And also like I challenge with success a lot around the fact that it's like it's what I want. It's not always, and
Mhm.
it's happiness in my own way, like you said. It's not what others have and things as well, or what society thinks should be. I challenge a lot around expectations on things. Like I
Mhm.
remember when I left the corporate world was what you expect and want from me is not what I want for my life. Like it's just very different there. I just don't want that life anymore. And you're
Mhm.
almost making me feel like it's bad because I'm not aligned to what you think is what is the right thing for me. And
Mhm.
challenging those things is really, and it's tough for lots of people, and it's really tough if you're not in worlds with people like us or other people who see the world differently and challenge to more things. And travel does that for me. When I did the mastermind last year and went to New York, that I was kind of that girl that said that I don't need a yacht, I don't need to be doing all the millions and all of that. And my dad was like, just be careful, you might like the yacht. And then what I did see from that experience, I was like you, like the world's a huge place and there's more I want to see of it. And the art, the possible, the potential that you can have, and the impact and the difference you can make in the world, that's what I want more of. That's the feeling I need more in my life.
Yeah, yeah, and it's that feeling. And I think you know, if I think about moments when I've come away from a talk that I've delivered and like I'm just buzzing and I'm like, this is what I want more of because I know the impact it's had on them. But I've had a lot of fun doing this as well, and I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas I think initially, you know, it's very easy, especially the stuff that you see online, you're a 10K month, this figure year, that figure year. It's very easy to get caught up in, well, I've got to make 1 million or 7 figures or whatever it is. And don't get me wrong, like to me, you know, money can buy happiness. It does. It buys
Sure.
freedom, it buys
100%.
convenience, it buys luxury, it makes life easier. And, you know, and I'm not afraid to say that I want that, but I think it's
Yeah.
not like, okay, I'm only going to be happy when I'm, you know, earning
Yeah.
millions because, you know, I don't, you know, for me, a big thing is freedom and being able to come and go and not having to be tied down to anything. And I think, and that's quite funny because I mean, obviously I'm in a committed relationship and I'm like, do I have commitment issues here? You know, because I was even wanting to like get a pet and I was like, oh, but we're going to think about this and I'm going to go away and who's going to look after it? I was like, I'm not quite sure I want this. And it's really highlighted it to me. So I think freedom for me is a lot more important than what I initially um, thought. And I think this was also when I was feeling quite stifled in my business, is because there was a stage where I didn't feel very free with it because I had to be somewhere at a certain time to,
Yeah.
you know, and fair enough, like parts of your work will always have, I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about the shit sandwich, you know, there's going to be like
Mm.
crappy things and there's going to be amazing things. But yeah, I think for me, it is being able to do what I can do, but have the freedom and the space to do
Yeah.
that.
And you're right of freedom. When we were in New York, we had my mindset coach, Renee, who's fabulous. She did a part on values. And I, again, like the coaching stuff, I was like, so many people don't know this stuff. And I was like, don't like downplay what you know and everything. So I was like, wow. So I've done this. But then I started to think more and more. And actually, it was when I spoke on stage last year at Danny Wallace's event, which is now a big festoon. And I did a whole piece on the risk, leaving the corporate world, like just going for it because lots of people say they're going to and then they don't. And again, we probably downplay that. Like we talk about like I left teaching, I'm like, I left the corporate world. And it's like for some people that it will never happen because they just won't have enough belief in themselves.
Mm.
But I had to, for that piece, do a lot around, well, you know, I was like, I want freedom. And I did a lot of research like you there around what success is to people, what is freedom like. And when they said like I want to, similar things often come up with you know, like what's success to you, and it's around again the freedom to do what I want when I want and things, and very much similar default to me. Mine centers a lot of quite a bit about like being happy in the moment as well. But
Mm.
it was another level of, I realized that it wasn't just freedom, it was that sense of financial freedom,
Yeah.
and how that linked back to my fears of success defaulting in how I'm feeling, how that shows up for me behaviorally, but also then the depths of, it was financial freedom in it. Like when I said I leave in the corporate world, I was like, I need financial security. Like that's gonna, there's
Mm.
giving it a go, trying things out, there's taking risks, and there's no, I'm tense and I'm going to climb up. And I was like, that paying the bills is going to be my tense climb up step
Wow.
too far. So I knew a lot around, again, like, well, how does that show up for me now as well? Like we know business changes, as you said, it's evolving, it's constant all the time right now. We need to constantly do the groundwork on ourselves all the time to be, again, how we choose to respond to things, our feelings to things are so important all the time.
Mm.
Do you feel that or do you think and feel that you
Yeah.
downplay a lot of your strengths and qualities?
Oh my goodness. Do you know what? It's so funny you say this.
Sometimes I'm like, I just want to get you and shake you and be like this slap back and forth, like, go girl, just do it.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. And it's so funny you say this because this is something I was reflecting on this morning. I don't know what made me, I don't know what it was, but and I mean, totally glamorous. I was busy taking the bedding off the bed, right? Putting new ones on. And I was just thinking that you've left teaching, you've trained to be a fitness instructor, which, you know, it's not a big deal, but it was a big deal to somebody that was petrified of public speaking and being rejected from where I auditioned. And then I went back the second time. And obviously setting up my business and doing all of those things and coming to this country and moving to Berlin for a few months by myself. Like, you forget. I was like, "Oh, what are you going on about, woman?" You know, and sometimes I do talk to myself at home. I do, and that does probably look very weird. But it is also when you're working by yourself, especially where I stay, it's like it's just me. And I was like, these, you know, these thoughts can get a bit loud. We've got to know we're not going to go down there. But and you've spoken a lot about like the emotion and not getting sucked in with that
Mm.
emotion. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm paraphrasing what you've said. And I I could feel myself this morning like, oh, here we go again. Like it feels hard. And some days are hard. And I was like, no, I was like, look at what you've achieved and what you've done. But I think, yes, answering your question, yeah, probably do.
Yeah.
Because I just, you know what, it's so interesting. You just like in so the day to day of things and I say this to my parents and the clients, I'm like, make a board up, a vision board of all the hard things your son's done. Let him do that with you to remind him of all his successes, that he can do hard things. And but we forget this ourselves,
Mm.
you know, and especially when you do feel if you are doing something that you are, you know, I'm a people person, I get my energy from people as well.
Yeah.
And when there isn't a lot of that, it can at certain times with months and how work goes, it does, you know what I mean? You can forget actually, but look what you've built
Mm.
and what you've done. And to a point, actually, I am sorry, I'm going off tangent here. So, but Pam Linford, is it Linford? From the
Yeah.
coach academy? Yeah, she coached a brilliant coach, and she was my first coach. And I remember when I was a teacher, she got me to draw a picture of what I wanted. And I remember at that stage drawing a picture of me teaching spin, a picture of me like coaching women, and a picture of me in school because I couldn't see further than that, but I could see like the first step out of school, like that first step. I couldn't see the
Yeah.
big picture. And I remember there was a stage where I was teaching bloody spin, and then I was having a client in the evening, and I was still teaching at school. And I'm like, who drew this picture? Because we're all over the place, and this is not what we're supposed to be doing. But I've really been coming back to that again as I'm shifting how I want to work in terms of be more vocal and known in the corporate space for well-being networks and
Mm.
group coaching that I've always really not really had a desire to do. And I was like, we just need to go back and draw a picture again, Nat. That's what we've got to
Yeah.
do, you know, to remind yourself, hold on, we've done this all before. You're just doing this again.
And that's why I often use around like my secondary messaging is always my fitness, but that analogy always of the tenacity, the resilience, bouncing back, and what not
Mm,
what you want. And there's so much within that as well. Um, yeah, it's really interesting. And I think the part about just the downplaying, like I see lots of people that do that, particularly females as well, or they'll start once they've started a business or they're thinking of leaving and starting a business, and it's like you're downplaying, like you're acting like a newbie. And I said you've
yeah.
got so much knowledge and experience that you can really help people on. And I think the same with the fitness stuff, that you're doing like this is the hard work. This stuff is, like we said at the start, knowing your feelings, digging into the stuff that we haven't ever been educated on, and then suddenly we need therapy and counseling and whatever when we get to 30s 40s and things, because that we've just been compressing it and not leaning into it. And I think that's when I'll say to somebody again, like sometimes my thing on success is that like success, yes, there's money to a degree, of course there has to be if you've been able to build businesses and get more money, etc. That's absolutely a measure. But I also look at the fact of, if you're not really happy as well within yourself, or like you, and being a happy relationship with you before someone else as well, then that doesn't dictate happiness to me. So I always say the idea of the gym, that if you're not fit and in shape and how you want to be in your own skin, then that's not success and happiness to me. And I don't care if it's a CEO of, I always say the CEO of Mars or whatever, that walks into the gym I'm in, which is pretty unlikely in a pure gym, but you never know. I said the fact that if he can't do a fitness routine and he's struggling, I was like, that's not somebody that I look to as
Mm,
success, and to really show me what's really important in life. And the fact that they're tapped into, their mindset and owning their mind and taking responsibility for themselves, those are the core things that we
mm,
absolutely, like, they're the foundations almost. I think like health for me is such
yeah.
a foundation every single day, because of then, like you say, the links to the mindset. And actually we know that 99% of the business game is mindset.
It is. And you know what? That's the other thing for success as well, definitely is health.
Yeah.
was investing in my health. And, you know, fitness is a really important part of what I do. Initially, I mean, I was not a sporty kid at school. I was
Oh,
slightly overweight. I hated running. Um, and initially, yeah, the fitness was a thing because I wanted to look a certain way. But now it's, you know, for many years, it's been more, how does it make me feel?
right.
And I want to be strong and I want to, you know, have a healthy body, because without my health, no amount of mindset's going to get me, well, you know, mindset can overcome health. Like there's a lot of like visualization studies around that, but it's just going to make life easy and it gives you the energy that you need.
Yeah.
And I think exactly like you, I think you know, for me, markers of success are not that you have to look a certain way, but are you investing in your health? Are you looking after yourself? Are you, you know, investing in growing in yourself as well and expanding yourself, that you're not a know-it-all because you believe, you know it all, you've made it. It's more, what is there still for me to know? You know, those are really important things as well. And I think yeah, like, you know, the health and it's interesting because with fitness, it just helps me know I can do hard things.
Yeah.
And even on those days when I don't feel like going and I don't want to do this, I'm like, no, okay, well, we're doing this to prove myself I can do hard things. And every time you do that, and I mean, our friend Nick talks about this, but you do keep those
Yeah.
little promises to yourself. And that's what builds a self-trust and that's what builds a
Right.
self-belief. And
Yes.
so those things are so, so important as well,
Yeah.
because we underestimate the value of that, you know. And I think that those are like actually the foundation of everything else that comes after it.
Yeah, I was at the gym earlier and I put on like a post about like people underplay what consistency means to them, like seriously in all the aspects. And what I love is about our relationship, and like you mentioned Nick Feeney there, that we were in his 100 club and that was around again small steps,
Mm,
consistency, again belief, trust in yourself is so important. But again, the core of that and the foundation is the connection that you have with people and surrounding yourself, the environment with people who do understand. And it's not default that you create like a little world where everybody's lovely and it's all nice, but you do have to
mm,
create those environments and also be people that challenge you, like you do feel the small fish, but people that you know, like success leaves clues in that thing, that is a core
mm,
part of, again, success is the people you surround yourself with, what you attract, how you show up, how you are behaviorally with everything, what you believe in as well. All of those things play a profound impact again in the success that you have within your business. And that's why I
mm,
talk like of lots of messaging and stuff with people that it's deeper than that. And again, it's like you say, it's biopsychology, it's knowing who you're speaking to, it's all of the mindset work you're doing in your business, how you're showing up as a leader, how you're getting through the tough times more than how you're getting through the better times. All of that playing a part is giving off and communicating to people about your business and what you do.
Absolutely. And I do think, you know, the environment is key and the relationships. Because
Yeah.
one of the things that came to mind as I was talking about that, but I was just like, Natalie, going to carry on a tangent. Another thing as well is the relationships, but it's also and I'm sure I've heard you say this, but it's how you make people feel. You know, people don't remember what you did. It's how they remember how you made them feel. Um, and I think for me, a key part of that success as well is, what relationships am I in? Who am I spending time with? Or what am I watching and reading and listening to? Because that diet is just as important as, you know, what you're eating. And I think it is, you often say that in your podcast, you know, about success leaves clues. And it is, what are those people doing? And it's not necessarily, oh, well, now, you know, because it's very easy, well, now I'm going to drop all of these friends and get all of these. That's not the case at all. But I think it is, who's going to help me grow.
Mm,
And actually, the amount of opportunities that have come my way
mm,
when you're in those environments organically, you know, it's not, well, let's just do work, but it's just, this one knows this one and this one's referred you on, or this has happened and it's just this conversation. And I mean, even one of the things that I've really taken away, I was telling you, like, I've been binging your podcast at the moment, actually. I was like, and I told my husband, I'm talking to you, he's like, oh, the podcast girl. I was like, yeah, Natalie. Right.
yeah.
Oh, and but it is asking more people. And I was like, you were so right. Like, one people knows how many other people.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it just makes sense. And but it's, yeah, it is. I think that's a really important part. We can sometimes downplay how important those connections and that part of the environment also is.
And I think that can be the only risk sometimes. I realized that a lot when I was in the coaching world, was that like I started to look at my relationships in my life, all of them, and I have a different process I go through now, which I do with it's whether it's old friends, etc. Of like, what is that relationship? What am I giving that, and what am I getting back from that relationship being two-way, whether it's friends or whatever. But I started to notice that my world was like things were good, and then I was like challenged when things came up, and I was like, crap, like how do I deal with that now? Nothing goes wrong in my life. Like things were nice at one point with like it was just a flow like that I got into. And it was then how I chose to respond to that when it did come up. But also that, yes, surround yourself and be in those worlds, but you do have to still have perspective and be the core and reality of life as well, because otherwise you can get very bubbled and everyone around you is great and it's all lovely. And it's like that isn't the world as well for most people. So you've got to have enough, I guess, awareness to say like you appreciate where you're at with that as well when you're making conscious decisions around those relationships. Otherwise it can all feel like stuff's going quite swimmingly, and when you do hit that block you don't know how to deal with it either. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. And it makes me think of another friend of mine, Simon Alexander Ong, that
Yes.
one of the things I learned from him was making the effort to really connect with people that are different to what you do in your
Yeah.
industry. And that's something
Mhm.
I've really learned as well, that I don't know, I don't think he said this, but like it's just always made me think of, okay, there's always something that we can learn from somebody else,
100%. Yeah.
regardless of where they are in, because at the end of the day, they're a human being
Mm.
and their worth is as much worth as anybody else's. So whether they're the CEO of Google or, you know, whatever it might be, they're not any less worthy. And I think sometimes we can forget that, you know what I mean? If you're like striving to be successful,
Yeah.
but actually, the carpet cleaner's dad could be the CEO of whatever, I'm just saying, like, you just don't know. And so
Right.
for me, it is just being more open as well to just meeting different people, different contexts, being open to learning things, but also, yes, gravitating to what inspires me and who inspires me and what they do.
Mm.
Um, and I think, that's because again, you're saying success leaves clues. And what do I see my version of success? And
Yeah.
that has really changed. If I think to when I first started, it definitely was more the coachy world, kind of whatever it was at that stage. And it's so the opposite now. And it's actually, I don't want to be, yes, I want to be the thought leader and I want to be known for X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't have to have it's not everything's on social media. Not all the success is on social media. There's a lot of great success offline that we don't see. Um, and I think, it's just remembering that, because it is in the beginning, and I don't know about you, but when I first like came onto social media, it was all about like get the swipe up and get this. And it's actually, oh my
Yeah.
God, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There is so much to it. There is. What are
Mm.
you working on right now that you want to share with people?
So I am putting together an 11 plus coaching program for parents and children. I did a bit of market research 2 weeks ago or last week, and I was quite overwhelmed with the response, because the work that I do with kids, going back to actually why I started, it was to help children initially that were really stressed and anxious.
Mhm.
And so I want to focus on that. I don't agree with the education system. I think a lot of things need to change.
Yeah.
But there are things I can do to help the process. And so I've got a coaching program coming up May and June that's going to be supporting children and parents to prepare for the 11 plus exams. And I know it can be quite traumatic, and I'm using that word lightly, but also not lightly based on the conversations I've had with parents. Just to help them facilitate that process from an emotional resiliency side. And then also corporate work. So I mean, got a couple of workshops coming up with some companies over the next few months around supporting their working parent networks and looking at how I build that offering and, yeah, reach more people.
Amazing. How can people connect with you?
All the good social media places: Instagram, Power Thoughts NC, LinkedIn, Natalie Costa, my website, powerthoughts.co.uk. So those are the places I hang out the most.
Natalie, thank you for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I will be, hopefully, I'll get you on again soon as well. We can talk about something different, but it's been great. So thank you for your time.